Good afternoon and welcome. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India arrived in the historic city of Amman in Jordan and was warmly greeted by the King of Jordan. Both the leaders had a one-on-one meeting followed by dinner hosted by the King Abdullah. Now, Narendra Modi will be the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Palestine later today. No Indian Premier has ever visited that country, even though India has been one of the champions of the Palestinian cause for decades now. Prime Minister Modi is expected to have a packed schedule for the weekend as he will have multiple meetings with various leaders. The Indian community and business persons, the first engagement of the Prime Minister after arrival in Ramallah will be to lay a wreath at the mausoleum of Yasser Arafat. Prime Minister Modi will be accompanied by Prime Minister of Palestine, Rami Hamdallah. All right, joining me live from Ramallah is my colleague Daniele Pagani. Good afternoon, Daniele. Should I say good morning where you are? Put it into context for us, if you will, the visit of Prime Minister Modi's historic visit to Palestine.
Very well said, Ramesh, and good morning to you. Yes, this is a historic visit. It is the first time in history that an Indian Prime Minister decides to dehyphenate the visit to this place of the world. Normally, what happens is that dignitaries, heads of states, prime ministers, they travel to Israel and then on their way back they do a stopover to Ramallah as a matter of courtesy, to pay courtesy, not to make Palestinians feel isolated. But this is not happening this time. Prime Minister Narendra Modi landed in Amman. He's traveling directly to Ramallah. Here where I am, we are waiting him to reach this place where I am. This is the presidential palace of Ramallah, where the Palestinian authorities has its headquarters and President Abbas has its headquarters. So this is an historic visit. Palestinians are waiting to see what an old friend like India will have to say. Obviously, they have been looking very closely at the warming ties between India and Israel, but they do not forget that both the countries share a long history of solidarity and support. So there is an atmosphere of positive, welcoming attitude when it comes to the visit of the Prime Minister of India.
Also, Daniele, very quickly, we are given to understand that Prime Minister Modi will land in Ramallah at 10 past 10 local time. That's 1:40 p.m. India time. Now, how he makes his way from Amman to Ramallah is equally interesting. He is taking a helicopter ride from Amman to Ramallah, bypassing Israeli territory. What do you make of this mode of arriving in Ramallah?
This is something very important because it also shows the very cordial kind of relations that the Kingdom of Jordan is trying to build with India. Not that it did not have good relations before. There are very good and long-standing relations between the Kingdom of Jordan and India, but the king is said to have given to the Prime Minister one of his own personal helicopters in order to travel safely from Amman to Ramallah. Remember that Jordan is the gateway to Palestine in a political way. The fact that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had the chance to meet His Majesty King Abdullah of Jordan means that he surely got a very insightful opinion on the mood, the political environment welcoming the Prime Minister of India here in Ramallah. The Kingdom of Jordan is where many Palestinians reside. Many of them, when they fled from Palestine, found refuge in Jordan. Many of them still live there. They have passports and they are allowed to live there. The two governments, the Kingdom of Jordan and the government of Palestine, are very close. Remember that Jordan is the custodian of the holy shrines of Islam in Palestinian territories. Therefore, whatever happens to Palestine comes through Jordan also.
Also, Daniele, what should we expect from Prime Minister Modi's engagements later today after he arrives in Ramallah? Take us through his itinerary, if you will.
When it comes to the itinerary, the first stop that the Prime Minister of India will do is the Arafat Mausoleum and then the Arafat Museum. This is another way that the Prime Minister of India has to pay a tribute, to pay respect to the state of Palestine. He is dehyphenating the visit, so reaching Palestine and not going through Israel. As soon as he comes, he will go to pay tribute to what is considered the father of the idea of Palestine, the father of the Palestinian struggle. After that, he will meet the President Mahmoud Abbas. He will be accompanied by the Prime Minister. They will have a working lunch. There will be a moment when they will sign memorandum of understanding. Now, if we are to explore a little bit what is on the table, we can expect certainly that education will be a primary discussing point. India is already investing in a diplomacy training center here in Ramallah, which is where Palestinian young men and women will study and will learn to become ambassadors and diplomats all over the world. This has been funded by India. Also, infrastructures will be on the table, and also technology and IT, especially software engineering. This is what India can give to Palestine. What Palestine needs from India? Well, I will use the words of a Palestinian citizen I met yesterday. He said, we need everything because we lost everything, and India is an old friend, and we expect India to help us and to meet our needs.
And Daniele, before I let you go, you've been traveling across the region. You met people, ordinary people in Ramallah, in Bethlehem. What are they viewing? How are they viewing Prime Minister Modi's visit? Any expectations at all from his engagements in Ramallah?
As a matter of the kind of they are welcoming always with everyone. Obviously, there are mixed feelings. They know that India has been a very long friend, but they have been looking very closely about the increasing and warming ties between India and Israel. So I would say there is a lot of expectation. There is an atmosphere of waiting. Everyone wants to understand where politically India stands right now. Certainly, the de-hyphenation of the visit played a very positive role in the mindset of the people. Many of the persons who maybe were not aware about this fact, so the fact that the Prime Minister of India is not traveling to Israel before, but is traveling directly to Palestine, when they come to know this detail, it changes the mood on the ground, because this is a way to tell to the world that India considers Israel and Palestine two separate and independent entities. So when the Prime Minister of India goes to Israel, he goes to Israel. When he comes to Palestine, he comes to Palestine. This is definitely playing a positive role. Here, the people expect from India political support. They expect that India will help us to perpetuate the cause of the necessity of a state for Palestinians, the necessity of keeping control of their borders and freedom of movement.
All right, on that note, Daniele Pagani, thank you so much for joining us with your inputs, and we'll keep coming back to you as the day progresses. Thank you once again. All right, continuing our coverage of Prime Minister Modi's historic visit to Palestine, I'm now joined by Ambassador Arun Singh in the studio with me. Good afternoon, Ambassador. Good to have you back on WION. I want you to go through the text, subtext and context of this visit, if you will. How would you see Prime Minister Modi's engagements in Palestine and also across the region?
So, I think, as was commented earlier, this is the first ever visit of an Indian Prime Minister to Palestine, and we should put it in context.
Sure.
Because when Israel was established in 1948, then the area which is today we understand as Palestine and the international community understands as Palestine was under Jordan's control. After 1967, it came under Israel's occupation, and it was only in 1988 that India recognized the Palestinian state. Therefore, the question of making a visit to Palestine itself would arise only after 1988. And the area is under Israel's occupation. In 1992, India recognized the state of established full diplomatic relations with Israel, which India had recognized in 1950. Therefore, there was no question or possibility of visiting Palestine unless the Indian Prime Minister had also visited Israel. And so, with that having happened, in 2017, it was now possible to visit Palestine. And I think from the Israeli side also, it's a very major sort of gesture that they have made, because you cannot visit Israel, Palestine, bypassing Israeli control. So you did mention that, you're bypassing Israeli territory. And you can do that by going by road, let's say, from Jordan, from Amman to Palestinian areas. But you still have to go through Israeli control points.
Sure.
But I think as a significant gesture, Israel has allowed the Indian Prime Minister to go directly from Amman to Palestinian area to Ramallah. And that has been enabled by the fact that the Indian Prime Minister has visited Israel, the Israeli Prime Minister has come to India. And I think it's only in the context of that that they have agreed. So from there, because I am not aware of any other major world leader except maybe the King of Jordan who is able to go directly from Amman to Ramallah, because for most others, Israeli would like to make a point that you go through Israeli control point. So I think from that point of view, it is certainly a very significant step, and it reinforces the argument that India has been making, that we would like to pursue our bilateral relationship with Israel, our bilateral relationship with Palestinian state, as it serves India's interest, while maintaining our position on the Israel-Palestine issue and keeping it in the standard norms. And I think the visit really should be seen in that context. And so I think it will certainly be welcomed by the leadership in Palestinian Authority, Palestinian state, the people there, and in the wider region, that there is a certain recognition of the Palestinian state as an entity, and the Indian Prime Minister is making a visit.
Ambassador Singh, I'll come back to you in a moment, but I'm now joined by Mr. Mustafa Barghouti, the General Secretary of the Palestinian National Initiative. He joins us live via Skype from Palestine. Mr. Barghouti, thank you so much for speaking to WION and making time to speak to us this afternoon. And for our viewers, Mr. Barghouti is a Palestinian physician, activist and politician who serves, as I said, as the General Secretary of the political party known as the Palestinian National Initiative. He's also known as Al-Mubadara. He has been a member of the Palestinian Legislative Council since 2006 and is also a member of the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO, Central Council. In 2007, he was Minister of Information in the Palestinian Unity Government. Mr. Barghouti, thank you again for joining us on this discussion. First up, how do you view Prime Minister Modi's historic, some would say, visit to Palestine?
Well, we really appreciate this visit. We think it's very important in balancing the relationship between India and Palestine. The Indian people have always been in support of the Palestinian people. India has been a historic friend of Palestinian cause and a historic supporter of the Palestinian cause. Maybe people remember very well the wonderful stance of Mahatma Gandhi in relationship to Palestine and what was happening in Palestine. And I think this visit hopefully will bring back the warmth of the Indian-Palestinian relationship, which was to some extent a little bit affected by the military cooperation between Israel and India, by certain stands maybe that people saw that the new government in India is taking a stronger relationship with Israel. I think this visit brings back the balance as it should be. And this visit hopefully will strengthen more the solidarity cooperation between India and the Palestinian people. You are right to say that this is historic because the Prime Minister of India is doing something that is happening, which is flying to Palestine directly, bypassing Israel. This was done not only by the King of Jordan and by the President of Russia, Mr. Putin. And we do believe that India and the BRICS countries in general, including Russia and China and Brazil and South Africa, can play a very important role in the future, especially in the light of the big failure of the American policy here.
Mr. Barghouti, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm given to understand that this is the first ever visit by a world leader to Ramallah after the vote in the UNGA. Is that correct?
That's very correct, and it's a major issue.
My next logical question to you is, how do you view India's decision to vote against Israel or in favor of Palestine resolution criticizing the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel by the US? Put this visit in context for me, especially in light of the UNGA votes there.
Yes, India has voted with us in the United Nations, and that was greatly appreciated. They voted against the unilateral, destructive American decision to recognize Jerusalem as a capital of Israel, violating international law, and practically the American president participated in violating international law by doing so. So the fact that India voted with us and the fact that the Prime Minister of India is coming to visit Palestine is very encouraging. Taking sides against other sides. It means India is taking the side of international law. India is taking the side of justice. India is supporting the rights of the Palestinian people. whether they are the refugees from Palestine who were displaced from their country in 1948, or whether they are the Palestinians who are under military occupation, which has become the longest military occupation in history. We share with India historical struggle against colonialism. We share with India the spirit and the struggle for independence. And I believe that the Indian people is supportive of the Palestinian people. So this move by the Prime Minister, as I said, is highly appreciated. And we hope it will produce greater cooperation between India and Palestine and greater understanding of the risks that Netanyahu's government represent, not only to Palestine, but to the national community and to the possibility of peace in this region.
Mr. Barghouti, please stay on. I want to bring in Ambassador Singh back in the discussion. Ambassador Singh, before we were joined by Mr. Barghouti, we were talking about the dehyphenation of India's policy towards both Israel and Palestine. But talking specifically about the visit to Palestine in terms of both symbolism and substance, going beyond the optics, what do you think India will hope to achieve towards the end of Prime Minister Modi's visit later today?
So one is the message that is being sent out, and second, on some areas of substantive cooperation. In terms of the message, I think it's a clear message that India attaches importance to the Palestinian state, the Palestinian entity, to the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people, and therefore by going to Ramallah and meeting the leadership there and signaling to the people there that India attaches importance to this state, I think there is a message that, that India supports their legitimate aspirations. Beyond that, I think we have had an ongoing set of cooperation with the Palestinian Authority in terms of facilitating work at schools, building libraries, building information technology center. So all that area to enhance technical capacities within the Palestinian area, which would work to the benefit of the people, enable them to get jobs, enable them to meet some of their requirements. So I'm sure there'll be additional measures of cooperation targeted at that.
And at talking about the political aspect or dimension of the visit, can and should India seek to play a more high-profile, perhaps influential role in the Israel-Palestine issue, or you think India is better served by staying outside of the crisis, as it were, in West Asia?
I would feel that India should not try to carve out an independent, high-profile role in the Israel-Palestine issue, because one, it is not likely to have any major impact, because countries like the US and several others are involved in this, and even they have had limited impact. Sure. Now, if a country like India, which has a good relationship, some influence, but not of the scale of, let's say, the United States, tries to play that role, the impact would be limited. Second, we will end up only complicating our relations, both with the Israelis and with the Palestinians, because we will never be able to fully meet the aspirations of both. Therefore, I think for India, the better approach is that you build your relations with both of them, but be part of an international process to promote the Israel-Palestine issue.
I want to take that same question across to my guest, Mr. Barghouti, in Palestine. Mr. Barghouti, now we've seen India play a substantial role as far as development aid goes to Palestine. But at the political level, given the fact that President Mahmoud Abbas says the US cannot be an honest broker anymore going forward, can India and other countries play a more crucial role in the Middle East peace process going forward, you think?
Absolutely. I do believe so. And I'm not saying India should do it alone. What we are talking about here is the possibility of creating an international forum based on UN resolutions and international resolutions and international law. An international forum that could provide a venue for the possibility of political pressure to achieve a resolution of ending occupation, allowing Palestine to be independent, and ending this horrible situation which has been here for more than 70 years. But let me tell you that probably the decision makers in India, like in many other countries, do realize how risky the situation today is, because we've reached a point where the government of Israel, Netanyahu's government, is really killing the very last opportunity of two-state solution. By settlement activities that are unlimited and that have expanded at a rate that is totally unprecedented, by annexing Jerusalem, by trying to prevent Palestinians from having contiguity of their territory, and most important, by creating a system of apartheid, a system of racial discrimination that is much worse than what prevailed in South Africa at one point of time. The responsibility of international community, and India is a major player in the international community and has great responsibilities. The responsibility of the international community is really to exercise pressure now on Israel as soon as possible to save the two-state solution. Otherwise, we will find ourselves in a situation where we have to struggle for very, very, very long time and suffer for very, very long time to achieve one democratic state with equal rights for everybody. A shortcut is two-state solution. That was the compromise. Israel is sending a message to the world community and to us that they do not want a compromise. And that's why the involvement of India and all other communities in the world is so important today for the sake of the future of both people.
All right. On that note, Mustafa Barghouti and Ambassador Singh, who is joining me in the studio, thank you so much for this discussion. We'll keep coming back to you as the day progresses.